My name is Jaclyn Long, and I'm a marriage and family therapist and a parent educator, and also a certified yoga and mindfulness teacher and a mom. And I kind of put all of those together to create Mind Body Moms, a company that helps to promote health and wellness and effective communication and leadership at home and also at the workplace. And as a counselor, I've had hundreds of parents in my office say, I really want to parent differently than I was parented. I have great parents, I love them, but I'm trying to change, I'm trying to do things differently, and it's really hard. Why can't I change? I have this will, I have this motivation, I can achieve these things in my workplace. How come I can't achieve this thing that I'm trying to do so hard at home? I have this goal, I'm writing down what I want to do, and I can't achieve it, I can't do it. So this is something that I've explored in depth, and I've discovered 3 things that get in the way of transforming the way we raise our kids. You guys interested? All right. So number 1, self-judgment. When we make mistakes, we tend to beat ourselves up, and we're harsh and critical with ourselves inside, and that gets in the way of our learning. It's disintegrating. 2, lack of community. Especially as working parents, it's hard to find the time to build the kind of community that can help us learn and grow. 3, outdated parenting software. Outdated parenting software. So what kinds of things can help us learn and grow as parents and transform the way we parent our kids? Interested? Okay. 1, mindfulness. We need to be engaging in practices that help us regularly stay present and awake and aware in the moment so we can choose something different. We need to be kind of online in order to choose something different. And also practices that encourage self-compassion and a caring attitude towards ourselves so we can be gentle with ourselves when we make mistakes. Anybody in here not make a mistake as a parent? Ever? So it's inevitable. We will continue to make mistakes no matter how mindful we are. And when we do, it's helpful to be kind to ourselves. But I've been practicing mindfulness for over 17 years now, and it's still sometimes hard for me to be kind to myself. So when I can't muster self-compassion, what do? That comes to number 2, community. We need a strong, robust community to tap into when self-judgment comes through, and we can't find the caring attitude towards ourselves. And this self-compassion is integrating. It brings together disparate parts of ourselves for greater learning and deeper integration to promote learning and growth and change. And 3, which Danielle is here today to offer you, updated parenting software. Because most of us are operating on parenting software systems that were installed in us about 30 years ago. They're ancient. And in the last 30 years, there's been so much discovery, including Dan Siegel's work, a whole new field he's pioneered called interpersonal neurobiology, which brings in lots of neuroscience research. We didn't even have MRIs, way back when. So there's also 52 beautiful tools that Jane Nelson has developed for positive discipline, and 6 elegant, simple, soulful solutions that Patty Whiffler with Hand-in-Hand Parenting has developed. That's just in the last 30 years. And 25 years of anecdotal evidence shows that Patty Whiffler's work is really helpful to nurturing children and helping them become more cooperative and relaxed in their bodies. So what we're offering you today, what Danielle's going to share with you, is an updated parenting software. And we really want to encourage you to not just get this downloaded into you, but to be an active participant in this downloading process and this installation. So ask great questions, use the dory. We will have a time at the end for your questions. If some come up in the middle, we might put them on the board for the end. And also use a really good filtering system. So there's no substitute for your own good thinking as a parent. So take what works for you, and if there's something that's still not sitting well with you, just let it go. No need to struggle with it. Just let it go. I hope you enjoy.
So right now you're looking at slides, which is fine. At some point later when I talk, I'm going to be doing some things non-verbally, and I'll ask you to follow along. So we're going to see what happens, and I'll do my best to explain that with language if we have to when we get there. Yeah, be flexible. So I'll introduce myself in a little bit, but first I want to get a sense of who's here and to know that, like, if we had you in like a day-long workshop, we would, as you know, I'm going to ask, like, you know, what stage of parenting you're in, like how old your kids are, and I'm going to ask people just to raise their hands and take a look around and see who you might identify with as like, what's going on in their household might be something like what happens in mine. And know that if we had a day with you, community is so important. We would give you an opportunity to find these people, and you do activities together and have a chance to talk more in depth. But just out of curiosity, how many people here are expecting in their family their very first child? Like, you're not quite a parent yet. And in case there's anyone watching, like, welcome, welcome. So if you have a child who is an infant, like not yet walking, raise a hand. For people, so far that's none here. So if your children are like preschool aged, you see, oh, we got a lot of preschool age parents. Okay, hands down. If you have 2 children, yeah, we have a couple with 2. Thank you. How about elementary age children here? Elementary school, yeah. How about middle school? No. High school. Launched children. Okay, no one with children out of the house. And I'll ask, how many of you, raise a hand if you are parenting in a way that you notice is different from the way your parents parented you? Like, you just kind of know that from the gate. Okay, there's a lot of people are doing something a little different, right? Thank you, mom and dads, but we're going to try something new. And if you feel like you're parenting with less support than you'd like in any capacity, whether it's babysitting, food, partner travel, raise a hand. You wish you had some more support. Thank you. Okay. Next slide, please. Great. So I'll tell you a bit about what, I love this word flight plan that you guys use at Google, and I'll mix that with intentions. So I'm supposed to, as a presenter, like tell you what I'm going to do and then do it and then tell you what I did. I may talk a lot, I may offer a lot of things, but at the end of the day, here's what I hope you get. I hope you feel that I validated some feelings and experiences you have as parents, okay? I hope you feel that I listened to needs that you have as parents. I'm going to offer you some direct experience. We'll give some information, but I'm going to prioritize and value your direct experience. So I'll invite some mindfulness. And I'll invite you to kind of take on some role plays, what it might be like to be in the position of a child. Yeah, and lastly, 2 things I'll do. This is a tremendous integration for me to bring together design thinking and parenting and mindfulness. I'm going to give you kind of a map process to take a design thinking model and apply it to parenthood. And at the end, I'm going to encourage self-compassion. And I'll say it now, and I hope I remember to say at the end, if I tell you anything today, if there's anything you hear and you use it to beat up on yourself as a parent, I take it all back right now, okay? So we'll be doing this kind of stuff for about a little less than an hour, and then we'll have hopefully at least 20 minutes left for Q&A at the end. There's this Dory thing, which sounds awesome. Send your questions. And if there's something just like completely disruptive and like you've got no idea, like raise a hand and Jackie may be able to come to you as we talk. So we're going to be sharing parenting challenges, and Jackie's going to be typing these in to a nice succinct list for us. So it's like popcorn style. And since she's typing, is it okay if we don't bring the microphone around? Are you guys comfortable with that? Because people will be able to see. Okay. So sharing kinds of parenting challenges you have. Anyone willing to be brave and go first? Yeah.
Teaching the value of time to a 6.5-year-old.
Yeah, so how does that show up when they're not getting the value of time?
Just busy, spending 10 minutes picking up the most favorite sock in the morning when they're running late for the classroom, or just want to do things at their own pace, or not getting ready.
Got it.
For going to the school in the morning.
Thank you. And I'll rely on Jackie to paraphrase. But we have something related to they operate like at a different time schedule than we do, right? Who else? Parenting challenge. What are situations that you find challenging? Yes.
Helping them get through disappointment
Disappointments. Yeah, so there are emotional problems and disappointments. Who else? Yes. Potty training. Yeah, how many else potty training going on for them? I'll raise my hand. We have that in our house in the yellow.
I want to know, like, how to be not manipulated by my daughter's American and using fears.
Oh, so they manipulate you with their emotions. Got it, thank you. What else do we have?
One we had in common was effective discipline.
Effective discipline. What happens? Like, what's the irritating thing that happens because they don't have good discipline?
The behavior just continues and sometimes gets worse.
Oh, so the behavior continues. You want to stop it and it keeps going and it amplifies and...
Yeah, some way for them to learn from behavior that might not be what we want them to do.
Got it, thank you.
Compassion and growth mindset.
Compassion and growth mindset. What's the problem that you see because they don't have compassion or growth mindset?
Mean behavior.
They're mean sometimes. To each other or to?
Yeah, each other.
Yeah.
Some very bad words sometimes.
Thank you. Yes, in the back.
You did mention alternative parenting, but I'm helping to raise some siblings who have experienced loss of a parent and just navigating sort of like the responses to grief.
Wow, that's like super advanced parenting.
Yeah.
Thank you. So helping them navigate like pretty significant like emotional growth issues.
Yeah. Partner siblings, and then I'm also the oldest of 8, and I raised most of those myself.
Wow.
So.
Good job. Thanks.
Anger management.
Anger management. I have angry kids at home. What else? I haven't. Yes.
Dealing with failures.
Failures.
Trying out like new things that are say beyond their raw skill set, but seeing like very good important skills to have in life. For example, just speaking out, leadership, or being more vocal to explain what's going to use their feelings, explain their feelings, what's going on in their mind, on why they're behaving in certain ways.
Yeah. Thank you. You guys are so skillful at putting these problems into like a solution framework. Like that's the next list we're going to come up with. I'm like, man, you have to like go and reverse it, like get the problem out. It's awesome. There was a hand over here.
How to not always be the bad cop.
You feel like bad cop.
I'm going to repeat some of these downtime,
Yeah.
trying to find time that's not over-scheduled just for the live stream folks who can't
Thank
hear us.
you.
Yeah. Because I can't type anymore.
Are they seeing the slides, the live stream people now? Oh, got it.
Yes, but I'm done with this.
Got it. So we'll just consider that a place to be done, and we'll move to the next list. And in light of the overscheduling and some of the time, speed stuff, and the manipulation, I'll just mention some common ones, like how many people find getting out of the house is sometimes crazy, or bedtime routines, like brushing teeth, putting on pajamas, getting in the car and buckling the stuff. Yeah, I see lots of like smiles and nodding, like you're kind of all in the same boat. So the next list, this is where we are right now, like a drop of mindfulness. I had it when you mentioned the overscheduling, like I could completely feel it in my body. And the next list is where we want to go. So I invite you to imagine your child or children as like a fully functional person out in society. And what are the life skills and characteristics you would hope for them to have by like their early 20s? You guys have already mentioned some of them. Yes?
Emotional intelligence.
Emotional intelligence, thank you. And since I'm not sure what's happening in live stream, I'll be repeating back what people are saying just to cover our bases. What else do you want? What else do you want them to have? If you could plant seeds that are going to grow, what do you want them to grow into?
Flexibility.
You want them flexibility. Yeah. Yes. Respectful.
Well-adjusted.
Well-adjusted. Did you have one? Empathy. Contentment. Oh, yeah. Yes, in the blue.
Healthy coping mechanism.
That'd be great, wouldn't it?
Resilience.
Resilience. I'm going to come back around to you.
Sense of community.
Sense of community. Yeah. Back.
Being independent and making the right decisions on their own.
Make good decisions. They're independent. The very, very back. Thank you. So, and I'm going to paraphrase and make a guess that means like they would feel that there are lots of ways of being that are open to them, that they're not limited by stereotypes based on their genders. Cool, thank you. I'm going to coach you to notice your reaction to what I'm about to say. Notice thoughts that might come up. Notice if there's a feeling you have about it or if there's a reaction in your body. What if I said that it's the first list that gets us to the second list? That it's the experience of those challenges and problems that helps develop those life skills and character traits in your children. It's kind of a big reframe, right? It doesn't make them any less annoying, but they can be useful, right? We could use them for something. There's another reframe I'd like to add in there related to growth mindset, and we can start coaching and modeling for our children and use these words and tell them that mistakes are opportunities to learn. And in our better parenting moments, when we have enough sleep and have had coffee and we feel up to it, right? We can take one of those challenges as it's happening and think this mistake, this thing that's happening, this is an opportunity to learn and to teach by direct experience my children how to develop these things on the second list. And there's another point I want to make there, and I usually say this when I talk to teachers or parents who want to share mindfulness with their children or students. That we're parenting and teaching with a long perspective in mind, that we're more concerned about the characteristics and life traits that they'll have by the time they're 20 than making the behavior right now stop. And so with mindfulness with children, I say it's like planting a seed for an apple tree. Has anybody here gardened and planted an apple tree from a bare root or a seed? Yeah. How long did it take you to get apples?
Several years.
Yeah, it takes years, right? So you plant the seed and you still have to water the soil. And so having a patient, long view of parenting, and there's a phrase I'll try to mention when I'm giving you a positive discipline kind of, mantra, beware what works. You'll get the experience of this a little bit later, that sometimes we can get behavior change and get the behavior we want in the moment, but it might be out of sync with a character trait or life skill we'd like to plant a seed for. And you'll just experience that later. I'm going to do a check-in on time and see what I'm going to do next in our flight plan. In positive discipline, it's the parenting training that I have the most direct experience with. I also really love hand in hand. We can have a whole long talk about those two, and there are others that work, but I'm going to give you some positive discipline techniques here. And in positive discipline, there are these mental reframes, like what we just did. One's related to mistakes being opportunities to learn, cultivating growth mindset, beware of what works. We'll get to connection before correction. We'll talk more about that later. And we'll, if we have time, get to this thing called the mistake and goals chart. So the reframe, if my child is acting out, a misbehaving child is a discouraged child. So my goal in the moment is to consider, how do I encourage them? What is their unspoken need right now? Okay. And then there's so many tools. There's a deck of cards, and there's an app from Positive Discipline. So if you want to go on, you can download that app. It's cheap. It's 52 ideas for what to do with your kids. And there is a process I will introduce later about how you might pick and choose which of the many, many tools to use in a specific situation, which one might be targeted. Next slide, please. Here's an example of some of the positive discipline tools in a different format. Some of these are for parents, some are for children. So you've got the positive discipline tools on the left. These are kind of tools a parent might choose to pick up and use. And on the right, you see some tools for children. And the idea is that they would come up with their own options for choices, what to do if they're angry. And we'll say more about the time when they are upset is not the time to develop these. I used to share just enough information when I introduced myself so that your conscious mind would say, this lady maybe has some sense of what she's talking about. I'm open to listening to her. And then I just went on. And I'm deciding to open up a little more and share my challenges as a parent from an open and vulnerable place. So I'm guessing that many of you in here felt that academic and professional success either came easily or with planning and diligent effort. If that is you, if you feel like it's you, raise a hand. Like, you did that school thing, super great. You did the job thing well. If there was something hard, you made a plan and you did it, right? And then that was me. My husband is also an engineer. My background's in biomedical engineering. I did that very well. I went and I worked in startup, venture-funded medical device companies as an R&D engineer. And then I had kids, and I'm like, I suck at this. And the worst thing is I'd read the books, right? The like sleep method and the like soothing method, and it was baffling. Like, for every book I read, there was another book that said the opposite, and I wanted things to be consistent, and I wanted there to be one solution. Like, what is the formula? Like, I know myself. I can just like make a plan. If I got the formula, I'll do this thing. And it's not like that. It wasn't in my experience. My whole thesis was around, which I wrote many years after I had children, how to use the difficulties in adjusting to early parenthood for personal growth and development. And it was about this time, I remember so clearly having a conversation. I was at a bigger company, public medical device company with production on multiple continents. And our director of operations shared with me that the most stressful part of his day happened before he left his house. Like, and it was really validating for me to hear that. It was kind of weird to have that conversation with a man at work, because I think it's until this year of working that I felt my parenthood was something I had to like hide in a professional workplace. So let me get back to my point. It's different sharing from a personal place instead of just giving you enough information to trust me. So I'm here to give you bad news. So I went out, I'm like, okay, what's the formula? And I'll do it. Did parent training. I like trained to become a parent trainer in positive discipline. I went to graduate school in marriage and family therapy. I did more training in another parenting technique. It's like I've got a lot of information. And as I took that process on, I'm looking for, what do I need to do? And I kept learning that there's not one thing to do, and that relationships and people aren't as easy to put in a formula as what I'd worked with professionally. It's kind of scary. And I've got worse news for you. The thing I have learned that's been consistent across the board is when my kids are hot and emotional, when I am like when my buttons are pushed, nothing good can come of trying to like I can't do parenting. I can't teach all those skills and characteristics in the moment. I might be able to navigate that moment a little more skillfully, but like the parenting stuff has to just come and like be put on the shelf. There's actually a structure of family meetings you can do every week, and but that's really frustrating because I wanted to make that moment go better, right? So the bad news is there's no formula. The worst news is in the moment when things are hard is not the time to do that. But there is some hope. There's a process. And this is where design thinking came to my rescue, right? There's a process of being mindful to what's happening in the moment. Taking that information, bringing a little bit of parent training, and considering how might I redesign that next time? Learning some skills to talk to my children about what can we do differently next time, right? If I'm fortunate to be in a formal class with other parents, I can role play that. I can ask to be in the position of my child and tell someone like, could you please say this thing to me? And I'll hear it and I'll see what that's like, right? So you can collect data on what that would feel like. And go out and try it in the real world. And here's the saving grace. I don't expect that to work. I'm running an experiment, and I'm going to collect data, and I'm going to see how it went. And then I don't have to give up if it went poorly, right? I go back to the drawing board and say, okay, what data did I get? Let me think about that, and I'm going to try again. So it's this prototype and iterate process. It's not this one book that tells me what's going to work and what to do. I'll talk more about this design thinking applied to parenting a little later. Go through an example. And let's move to, let me just pause a second. This is like a formal Stanford design thinking map. It fits very well. On the top, what I add, so I'm coming from the bottom up with my own engineering experience. I'll talk some about that. If you don't remember this slide, remember prototype, type, think. And then put some empathy and mindfulness. Prototype, think. It's the model I learned in my profession. And then I'm giving you some positive discipline skills dropped in. And everything's going to be rooted in both mindfulness and attachment theory. Because I can't put those lenses away no matter what I do. I'm going to go through this map of positive discipline explained by some concepts from Dan Siegel a little more quickly so that we can have more time to have direct experience. But the 4 points I want to make is that, let's just do them. I won't say them in my head. I'll just do them as we go. So next slide. So naming it to tame it. It's a sort of mantra from Dan Siegel. Here's an example of positive discipline tools we can, I was going to say share with our children, but it's actually useful for yourself too. So if you're having an emotion, you can map it. What is the word for this emotion? And if you look at the list of words, like that's a fine tuning of the columns are glad, sad, mad, and scared. But there's tons of other words that are like little nuanced flavors of those emotions. And so we can share this with our kids. And I'll just say that since this book was published, there is some fMRI research that shows, people, when they're shown images that would trigger an emotion and their limbic system is activated, they have a lot of activity in the amygdala. Once they name the emotion they're having, you can see a down regulation of the activity in the amygdala and the limbic system. So I like that anecdotally people use the tools and it works. As a biomedical engineer, I'm always curious if I can find a mechanism of action. So it just feels good that those are integrated. Curiosity questions. In positive discipline, the mantra is ask, don't tell. And so it puts the child in the driver's seat, gives them responsibility. We assume that they're going to be applying thinking to try to solve their own problems. And so you would ask them instead of telling them, go get your homework done or go brush your teeth, what support would you need to get your homework done? You would maybe ask them to come up with a plan and set a time to hear their plan in the future. For the younger ones with the teeth, there's this idea of letting routines be the boss. It's 7:30, what do we do at 7:30? Or, what do we do to keep our teeth clean and fresh? And so the way we talk to our children encourages them to use both logic and reasoning and verbal parts of their brains, as well as to experience the emotion they're having. So we start to build integration. Next slide. Connection before correction. How many are you familiar with the still face experiment? Okay, so these pictures are from a pretty famous experiment with parents and young children, pre-verbal. And it's go home and Google still face experiment. It's the most uncomfortable minute and a half of video you'll see. So they ask a mom to come into the lab. You have normal, nonverbal, reciprocal interaction with a pre-verbal child. Mom smiling, baby smiling and pointing, the mom looks, and then they ask her to turn away. And she looks back, still face, not responsive. Oh, even thinking about it now kind of makes my body very uncomfortable. The child goes through multiple stages of confusion, upset. They reach for the mom. They try to point and use their usual come on, you usually do this. And then just goes ballistic, balls, breaks eye contact and looks away. And it's the most powerful imagery I've seen about the importance of nonverbal communication. We hear that 70% of all communication is nonverbal, right? And my guess is, I don't know if there's research around this, the communication with our own children, it's probably higher because they're so tuned into us and our reactions are so key for their basic survival, right? They know us. And so I'm going to invite you to stand up now and we're just going to do a short activity around nonverbal communication. I'm going to find a place where I think the most people can see me. And you're just going to mimic what I'm doing with my body. We're gonna do it again, and I'll add some words. Eye contact. You get, yeah, I like that. Say eye contact, I like it. Eye contact. Facial expression. Tone of voice. Body posture. Gestures. Timing. Intensity. Okay, I'll talk a little more. You can just do the nonverbals if you want. So eye contact. Am I looking at my child? If they're smaller, am I on my knees so I'm making eye contact? Are my eyes rolling? Do I look like I'm thinking about something else, right? Facial expression. Is my face soft and open? Is my jaw clenched? Did I walk into this interaction holding the tension of my day and you can like see it on my face? Tone of voice. Do I sound sarcastic? Or do I sound curious, engaged, warm, inviting? Body posture, right? Am I is my stress showing? Again, if they're small, is my posture down and moving towards them? Am I held back? Gestures, what are my gestures communicating to my children? Timing. It's about, is this the right time to have this happening? Meaning, are people upset? And we'll do another activity about that. Is there a better time to do what I'm trying to do when my child will be more open? And intensity, do I sound passionate? Do I sound angry? Do I sound bored? And like I'd rather be somewhere else. And so we'll do it one last time together, and we'll just repeat the words. Eye contact. Facial expression. Tone of voice. Body posture. Gestures. Timing. Intensity. Great. And so these are skills that I would, if we had you for a workshop and we started to do more role play, we'd bring more attention to and more noticing of your own nonverbal communication and that of your fellow parents. Thank you. So, timing. Dan Siegel has this awesome brain model. It's called the brain in the palm of your hand. And we can do it together. So, stick your hand up, and it's like your wrist is the brainstem. So this keeps our heart rate steady, keeps our breathing happening. Basic survival. Take your thumb and fold it into your palm. This is your limbic system. Storing emotions, storing emotional memories. Triggering threat and alert. Beginning the coordination of a fight or flight response. Close your fingers down. Cortex and prefrontal cortex. And this part right here in the middle is like the most key for higher order thinking. So making sense of emotions, labeling them, using language, making good decisions, planning, envisioning the future. And notice how this part touches the limbic system, touches your thumb, and it comes back and touches the palm. It literally physically has connections to these other two areas and helps regulate. Now, there's something Dan Siegel calls flipping your lid. Take your fingers, go like that. Okay, put it back down. So let's imagine, can I put you on the spot for giving like a stressful child interaction moment? Like a common one for parents? Like,
you're late for work and your kid's not putting on their shoes.
Yes, I am late for work and my kid's not putting on their shoes. That has happened this week, right? And so we try to apply more pressure to put on shoes and they kind of freak out, right? They've just done this, right? And depending on how late we are and our state of mind, we may have also gone like this, right? And so if you see what's leading right now and what's unregulated, are these parts of the brain that you would not make good decisions with. You would not lead from this in your professional lives. And so there's a concept called taking time to feel better. It's the opposite of time out. It's also self-care. So in this moment, is my child going to be open to any parent training I have about being responsible or timely? Probably not. I know, so I'll just say it for myself. Is my tone of voice going to be something warm and inviting and safe and supportive? My voice is not in that moment. And so we all flip our lids. Our children flip their lids. I love, there's this bit of research. I'll step into this as a marriage and family therapist. I can tell you from couples research that once the heart rate exceeds 100 beats per minute, the advice is there's not good communication happening. People need to step away and take at least 20 minutes, but no longer than an hour. There are practices about what you might do to feel better. and then you come back and you talk about it. You actually sell like heart rate monitors to do this at home. I kind of wish I would do the same as a parent, right? So when we flip our lids, if we have the ability to step away and take maybe 5, maybe 10 minutes to take care of ourselves. In a second, I'll have you turn to a partner and maybe say 1 or 2 things you could think of that you could do in 5 to 10 minutes to feel a little better and kind of like down-regulate your physiology. And when your kids are not upset, you can work with them on a similar list. Wheel of choice, right? What are things you can do to feel better? Yeah.
It's actually a moment where you don't have the 5 or 10 minutes when you get worked up.
Ooh.
So,
Survive, I get through it. I'll think about that, and maybe Jackie probably has a better response in the Q&A. But yeah, it's not the time to use the tools unless you have used them and you can reference them, right? And let me pause. Here's what I do in my household. There's like a certain threshold that I will tolerate my kids being kind of upset, and we still go with the process. And once they peak in emotion, I will say, you know what? We're no longer trying to be on time. And I'll come and I'll kind of like break and I'll get down and I'll give a hug, you know? And I'll, instead of being, Jackie, could you come be like in front of me? Perfect, and you're a kid. And she's like trying to get, so instead of, usually when I'm parenting, I'm kind of like face to face right here. So my son is so sad that I see this as, what he needs right now is side to side, right? Like or come from front, like, oh. And I just stop anything related to the shoes. You know, this is what's happening. This is the important thing in the moment. Yeah. Tough morning, huh? Yeah. It's okay, let's take a break. And when I have 2 kids, and anybody with 2 kids knows there's sibling issues. So this is our thing. I won't do it because people can't see us. We actually sit on the floor. It sucks having a mom who's a therapist and parent trainer. So I make us hold hands. We sit on the floor and make us hold hands. We don't have to talk about it yet. They may not be ready to talk about it, right? But we're in physical contact. We're breathing again, right? And then this almost sounds like restorative justice. Like I'll let them each talk about their experience. And they'll first try to talk to me. And I'll coach them. No, say if you have something to say to him, you can say it, or just say, I feel, right? Because they want me to step in and declare a winner, and I step out of that. And so each person gets to talk about how they're feeling. And often we still get there on time, because like that was faster than, like I have, scooped the little 4-year-old body, and now we're going to the car. And I forgot to mention my 3 lives. So I do work as a professional project manager and R&D engineer doing venture-funded medical design. I'm also a therapist, and I'm in the school system. I'm in preschool and I'm in 3rd grade every week for about 6 hours. I also do work with students and adults in groups. I teach mindfulness, do one-on-one counseling, and I have a small private practice where I see adults, couples, children. And then I am over here, I am lead parent at a parent participation school. And my husband is a vice president of a startup, and he travels internationally like 60% of the time. And I pick my kids up most days by 4. So, right, like I say that not to be like, oh, it's people like, you say, no, I'm not Superwoman. Because I can relate. Like, right, I'm living that life. I know what it's like, both in the parenting and the professional side. And I'll tell you, I brought that up to mention I'm in the school system, and I'm with students in a class setting. And I love being with the 3-year-olds because their emotions are so raw and they're so there. And this process is very much what we'll coach the children in school to do with each other, right? And I digress.
I just want to add that if you go to mindbodymoms.com on the homepage, you can click a little button, and there's a free video series that you can look at to explore how to keep your cool with your kids. So instead of flipping my lid in the moment, what can I do to keep my cool with my kids? So that will be a free video series that we offer you.
And we're going to do that whole 2-minute with a partner. I'll ring the bell at 1 minute. 1 or 2 things that you might do to keep your cool instead of flipping your lid in one of these moments. Good. The timer's still here. So share with a partner, actually. One thing you might do to keep your cool instead of flipping your lid, an act of self-care. And I can't emphasize enough the importance of modeling this. If you feel like it's hard to take care of yourself instead of taking care of your kids in the moment, raise a hand. I bet every single person finds it difficult. Your inspiration is that in that moment you are now modeling what you want your child to do, right? It's like kind of your excuse. And you can be direct about that and think about how you would, put that in language and talk to your children about it. And this hand model is something you can teach even pretty young children, and they seem to get it. Thanks. This is one of those tools. I'll point out a couple places where there's something kind of shareable with your children to kind of prime you. Oh yeah, maybe I'd do that with my kids. I'd tell them about that. Next one. So I'm not going to talk about all this. This is just for you to look at. You read much more quickly than you listen. These are the kinds of topics we would cover and go more in depth with if I had you in a workshop or for parent training. If you see those buzzwords on something, I'd recommend reading it in your Facebook feed. And my preference is to be experiential. So we try to give you a direct experience of these concepts. A little bit of education, take the ideas, the nice Facebook read. Let's put that into an experience. And then it's no longer stored up here with this data overload and all the things you ought to remember and you read once. I find for myself and people I work with, once you've had the experience, it's more accessible without having to spend effort remembering it. And I'll highlight the top two we're going to play with next. So role play and using mindfulness. I teach mindfulness to children and adults. And in the context of parent training, mindfulness is both a data collection tool, so interpersonal mindfulness, in this interaction, while life is happening, what am I thinking, what am I feeling, what am I deciding? And it's also a tool for self-care. And that's where some of the mindfulness starts to verge more into relaxation techniques, but building that trait mindfulness as well. So I'll put these questions on the board because I'll invite you to refer to them as we do our next two activities. So as we're going to do what we're going to do, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? And that means my emotions and also just raw body sensations. What am I deciding? What am I deciding about myself? What am I deciding about other people? The other people is probably going to be me because I'm going to be giving you some commands. What am I deciding about the world, right? Am I lovable? Am I good? Good? Am I bad? Are other people, do they like me? Are they trustworthy? Do they make any sense? How's the world out there? Is it safe? Are there, tons of support and resources? Am I going to have to fend for myself? And notice, you might even be aware of a strategy you're coming up with. So here's what I'm going to do so that I can thrive, so that I can get through this experience. For kids, it's often, here's what I'm thinking, feeling, and deciding, therefore I must do this to achieve significance and belonging in the world, or some sense of control. So if you are in a remote room, I invite you to play along just like you would be here in this room. And I'm going to give you commands. Don't sit down. Don't sit down. Don't sit down. Don't look at me. Don't look at me. Don't put your hands by your side. Don't close your mouth. Don't stand up. Don't open your mouth. Okay. Find another very confused partner and talk about this. What were you thinking, feeling, and deciding? We'll give like a minute and then we'll share as a group. And coming back to the group, bring like the pearls, like raise your hands to share what you guys came up with. And here, if you're open, is it okay if we bring a microphone so that the folks can hear you in the other rooms? Thanks, Jackie. So just raise a hand and Jackie will come by. You can share what you guys, What was your experience of that?
The expectations weren't clear. So that's just one point, but I have more.
So in that moment, what were you thinking or feeling about me?
I didn't know what you wanted us to do, so...
Or yourself, was there anything there?
Confused.
Confused.
Yeah.
How many people were confused? Yeah. Yep. Super common experience, very human. Common humanity. Other sharing, what did you guys notice? We have one in the front. Oh, she'll come back to you next. I need to receive support. Jackie's going to do the microphone thing.
I just had like a rebellious reaction. I for some reason, when somebody tells me to do something, I'm just like, I almost felt neutral. I almost said, I'm not going to do either thing. I have no interest. It was just almost like that was the rebellion, was just shut down and not allow the other person to have power.
How many people notice rebellion? That is my go-to when this exercise happens to me. Yeah, thanks. In the red hat, we had one.
I felt like somebody's trying to boss me and tell me exactly what to do, what not to do. And, I just can't. I want me to act as a robot, like my little 3-year-old. Sometimes when she gets mad, she just, Papa, pick me in my lap. Papa, stand up. Papa, walk like this. Papa, hold me with one hand and walk like this,
Oh, so she tells you?
She does that. She does that. And, we have to tell her, no, you can't boss daddy like that. You can tell daddy, hug me, kiss me, but you can't say walk, stand on one foot and hold me in your lap and run.
Thank you. We have another, they felt bossed. Another person ditto for that. Okay, so we're going to do this again. Stand up. Look at another person. Raise your hand. Open your mouth. Clap your hands. Sit down. Same thing with a partner. Go ahead and share with a partner, and then we'll share as the group. So what was your experience of that one? Thank you, Matt.
So we felt less confused because the second set of instructions were more positive. Meaning the previous ones were all don't do this, don't do that, don't look here, don't lift your hand, don't. These were all do this, do that, look at me, look at this one, etc. So the tone was more positive, I think. So it felt less confusing.
Got it. Positive and more clear.
Yes, since I knew it was what was coming, I didn't feel like following the instructions.
Oh, because you knew what was happening, you're like, I don't want to do this. I know
said
what's going on.
It didn't make sense, so why should I follow?
Got it.
I don't know why I thought, but...
Thank you. Yes, okay. I hope you're not bored with it yet. I invite you to stand up. I invite you to look at another person. I invite you to raise your hand. I invite you to open your mouth. I invite you to close your mouth. What do we need to do next to share with a partner? I invite you to sit down. And I invite you to share with a partner briefly about that experience. And we can start sharing now too. So either about that, let's do first that experience and then we'll put it together. Okay. Anyone?
Same drill. This was even more positive. This
Okay.
was now you're inviting us to do it, and we actually felt this was more fun almost.
So I'll ask by raise of hands, how many people found the first one to be both confusing and they kind of didn't want to do it? Okay, when I told you what not to do. So confusing.
Almost everyone is
resistance.
raising their hands.
Thank you, Jackie. Second one, how many people felt a little more open to doing it? It was more clear and they felt a little more willing to listen to what I was asking. Okay.
Most of the hands are raised.
Most of hands. And for the third one, was that, if you thought that was even better than the middle one, when you had an invitation? Yeah. And how many of you felt, most hands, how many of you felt a little more willing to do it? Yeah. I wish I could like Dr. Spock myself and remove all my nonverbals and be 100% consistent. I'm aware that I'm not perfect at that. So that probably clouded your experience. So just a little bit of like insight. As parents, what are you taking away from this experience? And just again, because we have people listening who won't hear you, we'll bring the microphone if you're willing to share.
Like even if at some time you really want them to do something, at least talk it in a positive and respectful way so that at least they feel, you're not just trying to boss them or...
Thanks.
So I think it's important to make your expectations clear about what it is that you want them to do.
I felt like the final way it was more like you were on the same level, like as a friend would invite you, as opposed to being on a different level where you're commanding somebody. So that felt more, I don't know, it made me feel more like we're part of like the same, I don't know, team or when I'm trying to relate it to a family member, right? Like you're...
Yeah. Thank you.
I thought it was interesting because the command was direct and it was saying you don't have an option. And then you can say, here's just a directive. And then the third one actually takes more emotional risk because you're giving the child agency and you're inviting them to say yes or no, which I thought was interesting that the reactions were like opposite. So your intention is, I want you have to do this. And my reaction is no. And you're saying, I invite you to do this. I could say no, but my reaction was yes.
Did you notice in that third, less rebellion?
Yes.
You mentioned, okay.
Yes, absolutely. Which was interesting because I could have rebelled if I wanted to.
Absolutely.
But I didn't have that agency realistically.
Yeah, we're just sitting, that's totally fine. You can just sit in a chair.
Exactly.
So a little transparency here.
Thank you. I was about to say that.
We actually just were inspired to do a little design thinking live.
We just made that last part up.
We just threw that in part because of your experience. When I heard that rebelliousness, which I relate to, we wanted to throw in what would happen if we invited them. So I also was thinking about doing this because it kind of came to me just now because in the therapist room, when I work with couples, I sometimes get a wave of something that could be helpful for one of the partners to say or do with the other partner. And if I say, please turn to your partner and say this, they'll usually be a little nonverbal, like, I don't want to. But if I say, would you be willing to turn to your partner and say this? Almost always there's, yes, I would be willing. So when we take a moment to invite or ask for willingness, it really can help that rebellious piece soften. And this actually comes from nonviolent communication. So I invite you to look more into that if you're interested.
Thank you, Jackie. You can have that with you.
Yes.
Thank you for playing along, right? Like to step into some role play. I realize it's asking people to kind of step a little outside normal comfort zone. And if you're in a separate room, like, I encourage you, please do it. If you didn't do the last one, do this next one. We're giving you things on the very kind of shallow side of the pool of parenting experientials. What I'll describe a little later, where you start to take on role-playing situations in your own life, that's the deep end. So, and I appreciate that these experiences, though they're very light and very brief, they evoke very real responses, especially when you're paying mindful attention. You can be aware of a really quick response in the body or the thoughts or reaction tendency. So you're going to find a partner, and the person with the birthday that comes up next is going to make a fist. And so find your partner. The person who has the next birthday makes a fist. When I see people with fists, I'll know that we're ready to go with the next instructions. So people with the fist, your job, at least at the beginning of this exercise, is to be a little resistant. And no matter what, you are not going to open your fist in the first 10 seconds of this thing. Okay? And then after a while, you can decide what you want to do. Other partner, your job without touching them is to get them to open their fist. And you're both being mindful. What am I thinking, feeling, deciding? What do I really want to do here? Okay? Any questions? Go. Get those fists open. Do not open your fist yet. Not yet, no matter what. Get those fists open. You're entering that choice period. If you feel inclined to open your fist, you can. You're still getting fists. I want to see a handshake up here. I don't know what that's about. I'm very curious. And as the volume's getting a little louder. And thank your partner. And you are no longer doing this exercise. You're now just talking to your partner about how that was and what you noticed for yourself.
So I could relate to the experience we had because we started by trying to reason, and there was like some attempts at logic, and then it quickly went all the way down to bribery at the end, and that's the thing that worked.
The bribery worked.
In this situation, I don't know long term.
How many people see that they've used that tactic as a parent? Reasoning turned to bribery? Cool.
I had an interesting thought that you just start as inviting and asking for willingness.
Yeah.
And I could have used it, which I said, no, I'll save whatever I learned for later. Why should I save it for later? You know, I could have used it right here. It's always you accumulate wealth or knowledge. You save everything for later. Let me use it later. Let me save this PDF and read it later. You kind of accumulate and use it for later. Can't you use it right away? I mean, you have situations, but you don't realize that you can use it right away. That's probably because you're not mindful enough. That could be something. So.
Did he open his hand?
Oh, he did.
Oh, he did?
After that. But I said, could you just drop it? And, I just said, could you drop it? So that's what I could have used a better tone and tenor to, kind of get it done, but I didn't do it as well. So
Thank you.
I guess that's something that I have to use right in the evening as soon as I go home, or in the upcoming meetings as well that we have in the afternoon, saying that, use that phrase right away instead of saving it for later. So that's something that I realized just now through this exercise. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I thought it was interesting because as I was being asked to unfold my hand, and it was more and more and more of like, can you just try this tactic? I realized I must have something pretty valuable here, and it's control. And I just thought it was really interesting. I felt like I had power, and I was like, I'm not letting this go in this moment. I don't know, kids don't have a lot of power realistically, and even little things, like you hold on to that. And I can remember being like that myself.
Thank you. So you can see just from these two very quick role plays, how much you can step into the world of your children and how much you can step into the world of a parent with a mindful lens and gather some data and insight. I'm gonna, thank you, Jackie, already. Can we switch to the slides?
Yeah,
How do we do that? I think she's figured that out. So when we do role play work as parents, so this is the it's not all lost. There's not a formula, there's not one right thing to do, but there's a process of choosing, let's choose, in my therapy training in cognitive behavioral work, it's called the one grain of sand in the hourglass, right? I'm gonna pick one instance in time, and I'm gonna treat it like a story, like a narrative. Like if a surgeon came to me and they want to design a new medical product, like walk me through what's the procedure, walk me through the procedural step, walk me through the preparation, the use of it, and so you see what the needs are clearly. And then as a parent, if you're in a group with people who you can role play with, I highly recommend it. If you're not, you could go through and take an empathetic lens. Like, what do I think my child might be feeling? If I were in a similar situation, what are the thoughts and feelings I might have? And you can definitely do it for yourself. And again, mindfulness is your data collection tool. So what kinds of solutions might be most helpful? How did that solution work out, right? In my engineering world, I'm going to create my first prototype. I'm going to do it very quickly. I'm not going to overly think it. As soon as possible, I'm going to get something into a physician's hands, and they can try it, and they can give me feedback. In a perfect world, I can go and I can watch it, and so I can even learn all the things they didn't say. So it's important to prototype and test. So you go home and you're testing it on your kids, and treat it like an experiment. You don't know exactly how it's going to turn out, but you're going to stay awake. Interpersonal mindfulness with your children, holding both yourself and them and their experience at the same time, okay? And then when you're with a group of parents, you get a chance to role play this before you go out and do it live. I call it like bench testing before you go like do in vivo testing. You do a first one. I don't want to send a prototype to a physician if I haven't even tried it out. I try to mock up, the physiology best I can, see how it works. That's what we do in our parenting groups. You can decide to role play yourself or your child, and you can even assign people to be other folks who are in the room, other children, a partner, and you go in and just the same questions I asked you. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What are you deciding? You go around, you get insight. You gather data from each person, right? Then you go, okay, let me jump into tools and I jump into brainstorming. And I put the participant in what's called the cone of silence. Because there's a way we have of supporting parents and talking to each other. We want to figure it out. Well, have you tried this? What's going on with your child? So we'll literally suggest the person turn and look where I'm writing notes. And people are talking to another person and just recording ideas. So brainstorm. Every idea is valuable. Make a huge list, and we make sure that we put a couple of the positive discipline practices that we just learned on there. And then the person gets to choose one they'd like to try. They can role play it again, this time as themselves, see how it went, and then you take it out into the real world, right? And then the beautiful thing is they'll report back on how did that go. And everybody's kind of curious until the next week, I don't know. What was the response, right? And mindfulness, we're not assuming it's going to be positive. We're going to notice what is. We're just going to collect the data as it is. Anything else about, let's go to the next slide. So you can see, I mentioned there's a map. The mistaken goals chart, cool. There's a map of ways to think about your child's hidden needs and mistaken goals and what tools might be helpful. And it starts with imagining that one grain of sand in an hourglass. So let's think about one thing. Let me play it in my mind like a movie. Or go out and I'm experiencing, what am I feeling? Okay, what's my feeling right now? So take a look at this chart. Start with the parent feels column. Think about, doesn't have to be the perfect, just be any kind of difficult situation with your child. Maybe this morning, maybe last night at bedtime. Think if you could see which row of feelings, which category. Did you feel more annoyed, irritated, worried, or guilty? Did you feel angry, challenged? Did you feel hurt or disappointed? Did you feel despair or hopeless? And just for yourself, read across that one row. We don't have time to go into this, but just read across that row and kind of take in that possibility. There's never the assumption that this is right. Again, we'll apply that lens and see what comes out of it. So I actually brought with me this dove thing I did with first graders a couple of weeks ago. It shows this idea that mindfulness, first, my definition that I like is the John Kabat-Zinn definition. He founded the mindfulness-based stress reduction. That mindfulness is just paying attention to the present moment on purpose, non-judgmentally. When I talk to kids, non-judgmentally is like a conceptual. I tell them being okay. You have an open mind and a kind heart about it. Okay? And so there's two aspects we already talked about in the definition, but I like the visual imagery, and kids like to draw too. Something about two wings of a bird. It won't fly unless it has both. On one side, you're increasing awareness. I drew a little magnifying glass and a little leaf, right? And on the other side, there's this feeling of heartfulness and this non-judgmental attitude towards what you're seeing, right? And I wish I could make this visual happen right now. If you can imagine this little heart I drew, like getting huge right in front of me, and put in that self-compassion for yourself as a parent, right? So you're noticing the experience of a parent can be tough. I will warn you, as you become more mindful, you're more mindful in those joyous moments that aren't the overscheduled structure, but you increase your awareness of the gaps and the unpleasant feelings too, right? And then how do you hold that? What do you do with that, right? Kristen Neff, I love her model of self-compassion. One, experience what is and allow it. I'm going to allow this experience. Recognize this common humanity. You know, another reasonable person in this experience as a parent, they might feel the same way too. I am not the first person to feel this way. I hope you got an experience of that in the room. Just when people start laughing, I think it's happening, right? And you have compassion for yourself and you treat yourself kindly. So shall we skip meditation in favor of some Q&A?
Sure.
Okay.
I think that's a nice place for me to just read a little poem. I really enjoy offering poetry when I teach, so this feels like it would come nicely off of Danielle's information around mindfulness and self-compassion, and it's called The Window. I was getting ready to go to work to give a lecture. I was putting my notes in my briefcase when the ball came through the window, and the glass went flying, 1,000,000 tiny pieces all over the living room. In that moment, I felt my anger grow inside, my frustration at the house never being organized enough, the expense of the window getting repaired, and living for a while with cardboard or plywood to replace the glass. The thought of how will we ever clean up all the glass? And I became angrier still as I now knew I would be late for my presentation. I heard your small 4-year-old feet running up the steps. I saw your tiny arm push open the door, your eyes locked on mine, moist, searching. In that moment, history changed. I took you in my arms. Are you hurt? It's only a window. It can be replaced. That you are not hurt is what's important to me. It's only glass, and you are my son. I love you. Let's get the broom. Bruce Linton. And what I like about that is, this, I'll just say real quickly, this recognition in the middle, he's aware of his anger. He's feeling my frustration growing inside. So there's this idea that this person, this dad, is aware of himself. He's noticing the anger growing. That capacity for witnessing ourselves in the moment helps with this question. What do you do if you're about to flip your lid and you don't have 5 minutes? These moments of just noticing, naming frustration can help. And then also not only noticing what's in me, but noticing the size of our little ones, noticing how little they are, noticing their eyes, noticing how their body responds to our bodies. That's helpful. And I also love this experience of, in this moment, history changed. This is a moment of updating our software, updating our internal software by doing something different. Okay, thanks. We'll take your questions.
There are a couple here that were voiced from people watching remotely. The first one, how do we educate a child that there are sometimes failures and we should just learn from it? They gave an example of having a 6-year-old who almost always cries if they don't win on a card game. And this parent's okay allowing the child to win every time, but worries if they're teaching he can always win, right? And so I think allowing the experience, do not make the failing go away, supporting through it, giving the language of mistakes or opportunities to learn. And it's so powerful when you bring in modeling. I know some people who are around the dinner table, they'll go and share what mistakes they made for the day. So you can model your reaction to your own mistakes. How do you motivate a young child to complete tasks like eating and getting ready for school? Lots of ways to do it. I'll mention a positive discipline tool would be to come up with a routine together. And so you can just, what's next in your routine? And so you can point back to the routine running the morning, so you're not this bossy pants telling the kid what to do. They have a sense of control. And as much as they can, they come up with a routine. Like, what do you need to do to get ready in the morning? You don't top down it. You support them side to side in coming up with their own schedule. And at what age do you suggest parents begin to try mindfulness activities with children? Like, what could you do with a 2-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old? I feel like that gives me permission to do the mindfulness practice we were going to do, because it's something I have. Oh, this is David's. That's why Jackie's looking at me with a strange expression. So these balls are wonderful. I forget what they call it. Hoberman? Does that sound right? Okay. So this borders on relaxation. You're not just noticing what is, you're making something happen. And this is going to take charge of breathing. There's some rationale behind this. As you start to exhale more, you tend to have more parasympathetic relaxation, okay? So, and a kid doesn't even have to be able to count. They're going to inhale as I open this and exhale as I close it. For those of you who want to count along, inhaling to 1, 2, 3, 4, exhaling to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this is, you can keep looking up here. Jackie, will you time us for 1 minute? Let me know when a minute's over. My timer's over here on this chair. 4, exhaling, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Just do it one more time.
Okay.
Do it for a whole minute. Is that okay with you?
Can I do 3 more?
Sure.
Okay. Just notice your own body, and if there's, any effect of just doing a very short little practice. I mentioned there's a new book that came out called Mindful Games. It's got like 60 examples of games you could do with very young children. You could check that out for some ideas of how to share this with a young audience.
And the question was to what age? What's the youngest age?
So I have done that literally with first graders, and they loved it. It was much easier than other techniques. I would do it with my 4-year-old too, and just set the expectation of what their practice will look like and give them the permission to have whatever experience they have of that. Right. Mm-hmm. It is 1:30. I tend to be very time-oriented. I'm okay if we extend and do some more Q&A for like 5 to 10 minutes. Be okay? Or
I just want to take 1 minute before.
And also, those of you who are in the room, if you want to write down your email addresses, if you want to stay in touch so you can be informed of other offerings that we have. Danielle is going to be offering a couples communication workshop in August. One day is on couples communication, and the next day is on positive discipline. So if you want to get into the same page as your partner, this is a really great opportunity to do that. We're also trying to ask a dear friend of mine who does outdoor education with kids to do a camp during the day for the kiddos, so the kids can be in camp and the parents can get supported. Really excited about that. And that is, if you want more information about that, that's on mindbodymoms.com. Thinking of other things that might be relevant. In 2018, we just led a yoga and mindfulness and surfing retreat in Costa Rica. And before I had my son, I used to lead family retreats internationally. And we're thinking of doing that again in 2018 to have a family retreat abroad. So stay tuned if you want to stay connected to us. Write your email address. We ask you to actually write it twice, because usually we get letters or numbers that we don't know if it's a 4 or an H. So if you can write your email twice, that will help us stay in touch. I'm going to go back to one of the questions about competition and having a hard time with losing a game. In my practice, when I was just beginning to work with kids, and kids would come in and the parents would say, he can't deal with not winning this game. He flips out. He has a major tantrum every time. I would usually begin by helping to coach him, and we'd play a game, and I'd say, you see, this is how you I was modeling good, sportsmanship, and it didn't really have any effect. One of my mentors, Larry Cohen, who wrote The Art of Roughhousing and Playful Parenting, said something that was I would never do that with a client. He said, okay, you're doing positive role modeling, that's fine. Do the opposite. I said, what do you mean do the opposite? And he said, model a really poor loser. I said, how would that help? How would modeling poor losing help? So I thought about it, and I just gave it a shot one time, and I modeled poor losing, and I modeled poor losing in a really overly dramatic way. And the parent was like, what did you do in that room? The next day he was fine. He could play a game, and he didn't even care that he was losing. What did you do? So I started exploring this more, and then fast forward, taking work with Patty Whiffler and Hand in Hand Parenting. She has a concept called play listening. And play listening means you are the goofy, incompetent one, and you can't seem to do the thing. So when my son was learning to walk, I would walk over to him, and I'd fall and trip on the floor, and he'd laugh and laugh and laugh. And what it does is it offloads tension. This is the theory. It offloads tension and anxiety that's built up in the system by not being able to do things. So in this case, the thing that's not being able to be done well is losing with good sportsmanship. So I am then modeling losing with poor sportsmanship in an overly dramatic way. I can't figure out how to lose and feel okay about it. I wanted to win. I wanted to win. So I'm throwing this big tantrum. The other thing that I'm doing that as my kind of therapist cap comes on to explain, like, why would this work, is externalization. So there's this issue he's having inside of him of not being able to handle losing well. And now I'm propping it out of him and putting it into me. It's kind of like cinema therapy or like, drama therapy. Now it's in me at a distance from him, and he can see it, and he can be like, oh my God, that's so uncool. So usually what will happen when I start, having this big tantrum around losing is the kid will come up to me and say, like, it's not that big of a deal. Why are you acting that way? Stop, relax, it's fine, it's just a game. And they coach me. So it's out of them and they start coaching me. So I know this is highly counterintuitive, and like me, you probably will be like, well, I'm not gonna do that, that's just ridiculous. But if you give it a shot, I encourage you to practice design thinking and see if it might work. It's helped a lot of kids that I've worked with, really stuck with competition, really having a hard time with losing well. I'll close with one last inspiration here. So in the Boston Globe, probably over 20 years ago, there was this discussion on egg banks and sperm banks. And so some Nobel laureate wrote in and said, we should gather sperm banks and all of the people who've become Nobel laureates, we should get sperm from them and create these really smart people out of them. And a feminist wrote in and said, well, if there's sperm banks, there should be egg banks, of course. And a Nobel laureate from Harvard wrote in and said, forget sperm banks and egg banks. Just practice loving. How do you think one ends up as a Nobel laureate? By wanting love. That's how. By wanting it so badly, one works so hard and ends up a Nobel laureate. But it's a consolation prize. So instead of thinking about sperm banks and egg banks, just practice loving. Love a Russian, a Jew, not just people here, but everywhere. So we hope that of all the things that you've learned today, you'll learn that this is all about love. This is about practicing loving respectful relationships with our kids that's mixed with firmness. So Danielle teaches about kind and firm parenting. Both are important. Do you want to say anything?
I had so much fun with you guys. I love being with a group of people who are interested in the same kinds of things, and this is a great way to spend the middle of the day. Thank you for engaging and being here. Best of luck.